Thank you, everyone. Can you all hear me clearly? Thank you. Well, thank you for attending this special final shot ceremony for our good friend, Graeme Berman. Interestingly, Graeme was not a fan of ceremonies like this. He thought final shot ceremonies interrupted the day's shooting, and he loved his shooting. So Graeme, we will be brief. I'll say a few words, and Graeme's daughter Karen will fire the final shot. We'll then pause for a minute's silence to take time to reflect on our own memories of Graeme. After that, you are all welcome to join us in the Mosman Neutral Bay Clubhouse for food and drink, something we know Graeme did enjoy. Graeme died in February this year at the age of 91. He's survived by his wife of 67 years, Moiri, their children Peter and Karen, and their extended families, all of whom he often spoke of proudly. Graeme studied chemical engineering and enjoyed a highly successful career in this field. In later years, he was a board member of the well-known Blackmores Natural Health Company. Now, Graeme had very strong views on many subjects, views he often shared via the letters to the editor of Sydney Morning Herald. Graeme's well-crafted letters were regularly published. The most recent was just within the last 12 months. Graeme followed his father, Bert Berman, into shooting. He joined the Mosman Neutral Bay Club in 1947 and was a member for 75 years. He won the club championship 6 times, a great achievement when you consider the role of Queen's winners and national representatives that Mosman has produced. Graeme held many positions within the club, including club president, and was made a life member in 1989. Graeme made a huge contribution to our sport at an administrative level. He was a committee member and treasurer for the MDRA, and then he was chairman of the New South Wales Rifle Association from 1976 to 1979, and then president in the late 90s. In recognition of his work, Graeme was made an honorary vice president and life member of the New South Wales Association. But Graeme's efforts extended further. He was a director of the Firearms Safety and Training Council, and overseas, his influence and contributions were recognised by being awarded life membership of the South Africa Bisley Union and vice presidency of both the British Commonwealth Rifle Club and the National Rifle Association of the UK. When news of Graeme's passing reached the UK, their respect for him was demonstrated by the flags of the NRA office in Bisley being lowered to half-mast. Graeme was a highly accomplished shooter. He won 5 Queen's Prizes in Australia and the Ballinger Belt in New Zealand. In total, Graeme won 123 Queen's Badges, including 11 in Bisley. He and Moiri enjoyed travelling to Bisley every year, and he had a huge amount of success there. When researching this talk, I found an excerpt in the history of Mosman Neutral Bay about Graeme's first Queen's win. It reads, in the 1971 Victorian Queens, Graeme Berman scored 348, shot off with Jim Sweet for the #1 badge. Graeme scored a possible while Jim dropped an inner on his 8th shot to give Mosman its first Queen's winner since Ken Lee's win in 1953. During the Queens, Graeme had the unusual record of not using a sighter. That's quite a unique achievement. Graeme won his last Queens, the 1999 South Australian Queens, at the age of 68. Graeme also loved team shooting at club, state and national level. For 70 years, he was a member of the powerful Mossman Neutral Bay grade teams. In 1970, Graeme broke into the highly competitive New South Wales state team. He represented New South Wales as a shooter 15 times between 1970 and 1985. His baggy blue, this one here, is cap number 338. Graeme's first Australian team was in 1974. He was a shooter, captain or coach in 7 Collapore teams and 5 McKinnon teams in Bisley. He was in 6 Empire teams, now the Australia match, including 2 winning teams. In 1976, he was a shooter in the legendary Australian team to Bisley that won the big triple, the Collapore, in which he top scored, the McKinnon and the Empire match. Graeme's last representative team was in 2015, where he was captain of the Collapore team in Bisley. I know you'll all agree that this is an illustrious resume of service to and competition in our beloved sport of shooting. It has spanned 3/4 of a century. Graeme always enjoyed catching up with his clubmates and friends on the range and was still competitive as a shooter well into his 80s. In fact, he scored a double possible at the club when he was 86. Daughter Karen would bring him out, he would have a shoot, a beer and a chat, and his last shoot was in February 2020, and I'm sure he would have continued had the world not stopped at that time. Graeme continued to be generous with his opinions, advice and support right to the end. We all miss his presence on the mound and in the clubhouse. I'll now ask Karen to fire a final shot for Graeme. We'll now have a minute's silence for all of us to reflect on our own personal memories of Graeme, and then the target will be lowered for the last time. everyone. Please feel free to join us this afternoon, all of you, in the Boston Clubhouse for a drink to remember our good friend Graeme Berman. Thank you.